Hey everyone, how are you doing? For my really solid apocalypse story, just the kind you like. The main character isn't a coward, and there will be plenty of waifus too. So go ahead and smash the like button and show some hype on the video. Without further delay, let's get into the story. On a bright sunny day, the school was as busy as usual. In the cafeteria, everyone was eating just like any ordinary day. Gavin Clark was asleep, and his friend was trying to wake him up. Hey, get up! It's time to eat, he said. The chubby guy had spent the night flirting with a girl named Shen Scott again. Anyway, Gavin finally woke up. As soon as he smelled the food, he jumped up in excitement. Well, it was good food. He acted like he had never seen food before. He devoured his tray as if it were his last meal. He barely paid attention to his friend's advice or the people staring at the ridiculous scene. He just kept stuffing himself. After finishing both his tray and his friend's, he patted his belly and said, "Wow, I'm really back. I can't believe I've been reborn." The chubby guy joked that he looked like a gluttonous ghost reincarnated, eating without any manners. According to Gavin, he truly had been reborn from a frozen apocalypse era. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about?" the chubby guy said. Gavin simply grabbed Einl Parker's shoulder and said he was glad he was alive. And that wasn't all. They finally had enough time to prepare. Prepare for what? Of course he was alive. And what exactly were they supposed to prepare for? Parker wondered. Gavin suddenly asked him the date. Parker said it was August 8th, 2024. That's when Gavin Clark explained that in half a month, a snowstorm lasting 3 months would hit, bringing a new ice age to Earth. Temperatures would drop to minus 50 degrees or even lower. Parker didn't really believe him. In fact, he just laughed at Gavin. But the reincarnated boy didn't care, and simply said he had a favor to ask. Parker said he might help, depending on what it was. And Gavin said, "I need to borrow 1 billion. No interest." Parker spat out his milk and nearly had a heart attack. "You've got to be kidding, right?" the chubby guy said, and Gavin replied, "Do I look like I'm joking?" Parker said that even if he sold his father, he wouldn't get that much money. And Gavin asked, "Really? How much is your dad worth? Should we sell your dad?" Parker lost it and said, "Stop talking nonsense, man. Why sell my dad? Sell yours instead." Yeah, that's what friendship looks like. While they argued about whose father was worth more, she appeared. Shen Scott, the red-haired 10 out of 10. You couldn't rate her any higher than that. Just look at her. She walked in beside her date. Everyone looked at her, because wherever she went, she left behind a sweet strawberry scent and carried a strong presence. "Zeke," her companion said, "after dinner, let's go somewhere more private. I want to show you something big." Parker warned Gavin that Shen Scott was on a date with Zeke, and when Shen Scott noticed Gavin there, she snapped. The chubby Parker stepped in and scolded her for seeing another guy after everything Gavin had done for her. But Shen Scott said she wouldn't explain anything. What he saw was exactly what was happening. In the past, she had rejected him, and when the apocalypse came, he even starved himself to feed her, only for her to abandon him anyway. Man, the nice guy really gets nothing, huh? Parker just told the MC they should leave. He said it made him sick to even look at her, but Gavin said he wasn't in a hurry. Zeke, the blonde guy, mocked him, calling him a creepy stalker. Shen added to the ridicule, saying everything he did for her was just because he was a perverted harasser. Gavin said, "Are you done, Jessica?" Shen Scott simply told Zeke that he was her soulmate. Tired of hearing all that nonsense, Parker just wanted to disappear. Gavin asked for 5 more minutes. The chubby guy was stunned, and Isaac said he was curious to see what could be done in 5 minutes. Well, a lot can happen in 5 minutes, right? Including landing a solid slap on Zek's face, just like Gavin did. Shen Scott, Parker, and everyone watching were shocked. Zeke became furious and charged at Gavin without hesitation. Gavin crushed his hopes with a painful kick. Parker was amazed at his friend's boldness. Shen Scott rushed to help Zeke and said, "Gavin, how dare you do this to Zeke? He's the heir to the Great Dragon Group." But Zeke wanted to prove he was a black belt in Tendu, and jumped back into the fight. Gavin Clark's devastating punch hit him clean. Zeke dropped stiffly to the ground while Gavin said, "You're nothing." Parker asked him, "Man, since when did you get so tough?" Shen Scott panicked seeing Zeke knocked out. She ordered Gavin to kneel and apologize to Zeke. Gavin didn't hesitate and slapped her across the face. The MC learned from a vigilante. Justice applies to everyone. Zeke went crazy and swore he would use everything he had to destroy him. Gavin Clark slapped him a few more times and then took his pocket spray. Gavin said, "Ah, I knew it. So this is what you use on women?" Zeke tried to grab it back, but Gavin sprayed it right in his face. Zek's eyes started burning, and when Shen Scott approached, he told her to get lost, but it didn't help. He lost control and attacked Shen Scott. Zeke tore her dress and exposed her chest, then kept pulling at her clothes. He had completely lost his mind. Parker was desperate to know about the spray. Gavin Clark explained that the spray was Zek's secret to getting any woman he wanted. It was a spray that made anyone instantly fall for him. When inhaled, it drove people insane. Well, everyone already got the idea. Gavin told him not to worry about anything. The MC pointed out that Zeke would probably try to get revenge. Parker figured Zeke would try to keep it quiet considering he possessed such an illegal spray. Anyway, that was a problem for later. They left the cafeteria and the chubby guy asked where they were headed. Gavin said the obvious move was to sell the house. After all, they needed 1 billion. It didn't take long for them to arrive at a real estate agency. Parker reminded his friend that it was the only house his parents had left him. Even so, Gavin was willing to sell his inheritance. He would only get 3.1 million, which was still far from 1 billion. He simply signed the contract and left. Deal done. Since no one is made of stone, the guy said he would spend a little. They then headed to the supermarket. He walked in and said, "Give me 1,000 bags of rice, 400 kilograms of ham, 1,000 canned goods, and every pack of sausages you have." The clerk was overwhelmed by the size of the order. Gavin just told her to process everything he requested. She asked for an address so she could arrange delivery. The MC asked to borrow his friend's warehouse to store everything. Just look at that woman's happy expression. She had just made the biggest sale of her life. He said this was only the beginning of his purchases. Take a look. Those two beauties had their eyes on the protagonist. They were his classmates. They wondered what he was doing in such an expensive supermarket. Gavin then ordered 5 gaming computers, and the clerk was thrilled. She said he was the store's top customer of the year. The girls were even more shocked, since each computer cost 200,000. The MC said, "Pack them up and deliver them to my house, sweetheart." The purple-haired girl thought this was the perfect opportunity. While Gavin was planning his resource stockpile, she approached him. "Long time no see, Gavin Clark," she said, catching his attention. She and her friend stepped closer, showing off their charm. There was no shortage of appeal in this story. The purple-haired girl was Sharon, and her friend was Jolene, who was anything but small. In the future, they would become thieves who used their looks to get what they wanted. Sharon asked why he seemed shy and invited him for a walk, and Gavin strategically accepted. They were already eager to drain him of everything they could. Sharon even stuck her tongue out playfully. Quite a bold move. Gavin invited them out to eat. Soon after, they were at the most expensive restaurant in town. Sharon said, "Come on, my dear." The place was extremely upscale. They said even wealthy elites dined there, and he broke into a sweat when he saw that even a glass of water cost a fortune. Jolene said she would place her order right away. She called the waitress and said, "I want golden caviar, premium veal, and Antarctic lobster. That will be all, thank you." By the time they finished eating, the table was covered with dishes, and the girls were satisfied. Gavin asked for a moment and stepped outside. In reality, he went to the front desk, where the receptionist said, "The total is 18,800. Will you pay by card or cash?" Gavin replied that he wasn't there to pay yet. He said, "My dear, I want to order 100 tables with the same dishes we had today. In 10 days, I'll come pick them up, all right." The receptionist was stunned, as even she didn't know the total cost. Gavin pulled out his card and said, "I'll pay in advance." All of this was so he could eat real food during the apocalypse. Meanwhile, Sharon and Jolene were bragging about how easy it had been to fool him, unaware of what was coming. The receptionist received the payment and said it was time to settle the bill for the night. But the MC was no longer naive and said the girls would pay for what they ate. He was already moving on to his next plan. Loan platforms. It was time to recover the money he had spent. For that, he made good use of loans. He went out borrowing money through various platforms. Soon, he would become the biggest loan shark in the city. That's when he received a call. It was none other than Sharon. "Gavin Clark, where are you?" she asked, and the MC replied, "Where else? I'm heading home." He questioned why he should pay when they were the ones who ate so much. Sharon argued that he should pay since he invited them. Gavin responded, "Who was it that invited me to eat again?" That drove Sharon crazy. The MC didn't care about them at all. Even though Sharon made a scene at the restaurant, the staff confirmed everything. In the end, Sharon had no choice but to beg him. Still, the MC said he wouldn't pay for people like them. The waitress started applying pressure. Sharon then said it was time to call Hunter Walsh to teach Gavin a lesson. At that moment, the MC passed by a lottery shop. The good part was that he remembered the numbers from his past life. He went in and bought the tickets. When he came out, his friend was waiting for him. The chubby guy was eating instant noodles, and Gavin had good news. They planned to go out that night to have some fun. After that, they went to Parker's warehouse to check the amount of supplies. Parker still didn't understand why he was so obsessed with stockpiling items. Gavin simply said that a frozen apocalypse was coming. He wasn't joking. They needed to store everything they could. Parker didn't really believe what Gavin was saying. To him, his friend sounded crazy, but Gavin knew patience would win in the end. So he told the chubby guy that he would understand eventually. As they left the warehouse, 2 thugs were waiting for them. He asked if they were Hunter Walsh's lackeys. The men were there to beat them without mercy, and yes, it was Sharon who sent them. Parker said he would call the police. The bald one said they would break their legs before the police could arrive. But Gavin said there was no need to call the police. The power of the protagonist would take over. The thug mocked him, saying he was brave for not calling the police. The chubby guy stepped forward and said his father was the boss of Parker Materials, so they should be careful. The bald man said their problem was with Gavin. When he told Parker to run, the thugs attacked. "It's time to fight," the bald one said. He was the first to strike, but the MC dodged and even joked about it. Then he hit the bald man hard. And since the guy talked big, he smashed a wooden stick into his face and forced him down. As everyone could see, the rest of the group stood behind them, either angry or eager for the same treatment. Gavin pointed and said, "This is taking too long. Everyone can see it." While they hesitated, Gavin showed that he didn't think. He acted and took them all down with brute force. He beat every one of them. Parker watched the scene in disbelief, wondering if that was really the same Gavin Clark he knew. Gavin waved the stick and said, "Anyone else want some?" He added that anyone who didn't want another hit had to send him 100,000. When the blonde guy tried to argue, he got hit in the face. One after another, they paid up, and soon the MC had collected 600,000. He was already acting like a loan shark's enforcer. He just grabbed his friend and left. And look where the MC decided to spend money. Money, of course, on women. And chaos followed. The one enjoying it the most was Parker. Just look at his happy face. Gavin went to the receptionist and asked for the boss, Mr. Jacob, saying he had a delivery for the magnate. Soon after, they walked down a hallway full of security guards. Parker said, "You said this would be exciting?" And Gavin replied, "We're going to meet the boss. Isn't that exciting?" The chubby guy's heart was racing, and then the boss appeared. Mr. Jacob Louis. He said he had never seen them before and hadn't ordered any delivery. Gavin said they were valuable goods, but Mr. Jacob said he didn't see anything. Then Gavin said, "That's because the goods are us." Mr. Jacob smiled and said he had never seen anyone offer themselves as merchandise. Thinking it was a joke, he ordered the guards to surround them. So they found themselves encircled. The MC told Parker to stay calm. Mr. Jacob's business was illegal organ trafficking. So where were the organs? Gavin said they were their own, which made Parker panic even more. Gavin provoked Mr. Jacob further and asked if there was anything he wouldn't touch. The man said no, so Gavin said, "Then here's the deal, 10 million and all my organs are yours." Mr. Jacob said the market was down, so he would only pay 5 million. Gavin accepted, but with one condition: he would receive the money first, and deliver the body within 3 days. They shook hands and closed the deal. See how easy it is? Mr. Jacob then asked for a contract for Gavin to sign, but the MC said, "Wait, why is there only one contract? Give another one to my friend too." If Parker wasn't crazy already, he was about to be. A thug told him to stop hesitating and sign it. That's the level things had reached. Parker left the nightclub asking what kind of friend sells another person's body, and Gavin told him to calm down, though it didn't help much. Gavin Clark said he had a plan and that Mr. Jacob would definitely die. Even as Parker panicked, Gavin said he would show how it was done. The apocalypse was approaching, and soon after they went to rent a villa. Even though his friend didn't understand anything, Gavin knew that during the apocalypse, the place would be attacked by desperate people with nowhere to go, so he intended to take control of it. Even though the sales assistant said the owner didn't want to rent it, Gavin offered double, then 5 times the price. Then he offered 10 times the rent, and would pay the first month up front. With that offer, the assistant couldn't refuse. He also wanted full permission to renovate the house however he wanted, and the assistant said that wasn't a problem. At some point, Jenny Scott appeared at the end of the hallway. When she saw him, she lost her temper. Her mother was there too, and humiliated him, saying her daughter would never be interested in someone poor like him. The guy said that if they were foolish enough to think he was stalking her, then they should know he was actually renting a place there. Shen Scott mocked him, saying the rent there was at least 20,000 per month. "So should you tell her, or should I?" The assistant then showed up saying everything was ready and that the rent was actually 25,000 per month. Quite cheap. The older woman didn't know what to say. Shen Scott told him to stop trying so hard to stay close to her because it wouldn't work. The MC didn't respond much and let it slide. Sometimes silence says more. They left still looking down on him, but they couldn't ignore the assistant saying he would pay 225,000 for 10 months up front. They immediately turned back in disbelief. Gavin simply showed proof of payment. "I just transferred 225,000. The assistant then handed him the keys. The older woman asked her daughter if she had misjudged Gavin, and Shen Scott said she always thought he was just an orphan. But anyway, the next step was to renovate the apartment. The MC asked Parker about Rainbow Company, the best renovation firm in the city. He said everything was under control, and that night Parker would understand what he meant. They talked a bit more nonsense and set up their meeting for the evening. At the renovation company, Shen was also there planning to remodel her apartment. Gavin arrived right on time. Shen wasted no time accusing him of stalking her. Even the MC found it annoying. Parker defended him while the MC spoke to the assistant, saying he had a referral. As the jealous ones fumed, the manager appeared. "Mr. Z," the assistant pointed out the clients. The older woman started ranting nonsense that wasn't even worth repeating. Patience was required. It was a pointless exchange. Anyway, the redhead went straight to speak with the manager. He immediately asked if she had a referral. She said yes. Mr. Zhang pointed and asked, "Wait, are you Gavin Clark?" When she said no, the manager replied, "I see. Excuse me, step aside." He moved her out of the way. The real client stepped forward and extended his hand. Mr. Zhang greeted him politely and let him inside. Shen and her mother were furious and confused, and they would stay that way. In the office, Mr. Zhang asked the MC what he wanted to renovate, and Gavin said he wanted to upgrade his villa. The manager explained that simple renovations cost around 600,000, while more complex ones reached about 3 million. Quite affordable. Gavin wanted the manager to personally oversee the project, but Mr. Zhang said he was busy with major contracts and couldn't take on everything. So Gavin stepped up and made it clear he was the priority client. "What's your budget?" the manager asked, and Gavin replied, "It's modest, just 30 million. "What? 30 million? Mr. Zhang nearly fell over. Anyone would have reacted the same. "You said 30 million, not 3? the manager asked. When Gavin confirmed again, even the director showed up, saying he would personally handle him. The manager told the director to step aside. What puzzled him was why Gavin wanted to renovate a rented house when he could practically buy anything, but he would understand soon enough. As Gavin laid out his plans, the manager was stunned when he saw the blueprint, because the MC wanted to build a full-scale facility. Gavin said he would invest even more money, as long as everything was completed within a month. Mr. Zhang was impressed by the proposal. It looked like a fortified bunker, almost as if an apocalypse were approaching. To push things forward, the MC said he would transfer 20 million immediately and send 5 million more later. Mr. Zhang said, "Son, you don't need to say anything else." As they left, Parker asked what had gotten into his friend, but Gavin told him to relax, since money would soon lose all value. After all, he had secured 10 million from the loans he took, and here she comes again. Shen Scott once more asked if Gavin was trying to get her attention. Gavin replied that none of this concerned her. Let's keep it brief. The older woman said her daughter had spent 1 million. The chubby guy said that was nothing, since his friend had spent 35. Shen Scott said, "Oh really?" And the older woman continued rambling while the MC confirmed it casually. Soon after, the assistant arrived with the contract. The rude woman snatched it from her hands, only to panic when she realized it was all real. Whether they liked it or not, they had to accept the truth. Goodness, patience is needed. The older woman insisted it was fake. "You don't have 35 million. This contract is false." The assistant stepped in to defend him, but the older woman kept throwing a tantrum. Then the MC slapped her across the face. "Be quiet." After that, they left. Shen Scott was left shouting on her own. That night, they returned to the villa. Parker asked why they had gone back there, and Gavin said he would prove the apocalypse was coming. The temperature kept dropping. They went up to the rooftop and stayed there until a shooting star appeared. And not just one, many more began falling. In fact, they were falling right toward them. The MC explained that anyone who came into contact with them would awaken some kind of ability. Human powers would be unlocked. The falling stars descended rapidly, heading straight for the two of them. "Run, Clark, they're coming," Parker shouted. "They're going to hit us," he added, but the MC replied, "Exactly, my friend, that's the point." Parker told him to stop being crazy, but Gavin moved toward the light and was pulled into the falling star. To the chubby guy, it looked like everything was over. But moments later, the MC returned. Now empowered, floating in the air as he asked, "So, my friend, do you believe me now?" The glow around him shone much brighter. That was proof of his evolution. Parker said, "I don't really see you being stronger." Gavin gave him a demonstration by lifting him up with one hand. "So, do you believe me now?" The chubby guy weighed around 200 kilograms. Yet the MC went even further and jumped off the roof while holding him. Back at the neighbor's house, Shen was looking out the window. She said she saw a shooting star land in Gavin's yard. Then she dismissed it. Zeke Young would return and deal with the MC. And speaking of him, there he was. Zeke walked in calling for Shen Scott. She answered, and he went straight to the redhead. "Hey babe, go take a shower. Let's have some fun," he said, slapping her. The older woman scolded him for behaving that way in front of her. Before anything else, Shen Scott made sure to mention that an unwanted neighbor had moved in nearby. Zeke became furious when he heard that Gavin Clark was close by, and the older woman made things worse. Get ready, because now Zeke was about to escalate things and stir up trouble in the neighborhood. He made a call to a gym where a fighter was training. The tall man answered the call mid-fight. Zeke gave him the task of going to the neighborhood and beating Gavin. He accepted and continued fighting. His opponent found his attitude insulting and attacked, only to be knocked down by a powerful left hook. The crowd was stunned by the newcomer's strength. Meanwhile, before trouble arrived, Gavin was explaining to Parker how the frozen apocalypse worked. The chubby guy was terrified about humanity's fate. He said he would stick with Gavin no matter what happened. Gavin said, "All right, my friend, that's loyalty. Now go home and sell your father." Parker said that was insane, but Gavin explained that in a matter of days the world would change. No matter how rich his father was, money would become useless, while supplies would matter. So Parker made a decision. "Fine, I'll sell my father," he said. However, Gavin warned him to stay alert, because there were people outside surrounding the house. Beale had encircled the place and even brought some friends along. One of them, holding a hammer, tried to break down the door and immediately got hit in the face. Then Gavin stepped outside and asked what kind of nonsense this was. Bale introduced himself and Gavin said he already knew who he was. In the apocalypse, he would be one of those who gained abilities, and now he was just another person looking for a fight. The MC said, "Don't worry, I'll handle this calmly." Bale got furious and attacked him. The first punch missed and the second was countered. The thugs were shocked. He kept attacking, but Gavin showed he wouldn't back down. A kick to Bale's chin lifted him off the ground. Even after that, the tall man refused to give up. Then Gavin struck a nerve. "Help me and I'll help your sister," he said. Bale froze in shock. First, how did Gavin know about his terminally ill sister? Second, Gavin knew he fought underground to pay for her treatment. Gavin said, "Work with me, and I promise to save her." "Can you really save my sister?" Bile asked. Gavin confirmed that he was the only one who knew how to do it. Bile didn't hesitate and said, "Then tell me what you need me to do." Gavin told him to go beat Zek badly enough to keep him bedridden for at least half a month. Harsh? Not really. Bile called his men and went to carry out the task. One of them asked if he truly believed Gavin, but Bile just wanted to save his sister. He was willing to cling to any hope. Whether trusting the MC was the right choice remained to be seen. Meanwhile, at Shen Scott's apartment, Zek had other intentions. He said, "Come here, baby, let's have some fun." But then someone knocked on the door. The older woman went to answer and realized it wasn't room service. Bile simply said, "Step aside." The older woman tried to grab him, only to get slapped again. Zek asked if the job was done. He pulled out money, offering 200,000 for the service. Boyle showed him the result by punching him hard. Zek became enraged and Bile ordered his men to beat him. After just one kick, Zek tried to threaten them using his family name. Bile told his group to stop. Despite the threats, the strongman delivered the message. Gavin Clark sent me to deal with you. Then they grabbed Zek and took him away. Soon after, he was hanging upside down, badly beaten. Bile told him to transfer 10 million or the punishment would continue. Back at Gavin's apartment, they were talking when he received a call. Bile reported that the job was done and 10 million had been transferred. There couldn't be better news than that. The MC even went to sleep feeling satisfied. But as they say, what is given can also be taken away. The next day, Gavin realized he had lost the lottery. He was frustrated because he clearly remembered the numbers from his past life. Still, he needed to find another solution. At the gym, training was about to begin. Sharon and Jolene were already there, waiting, both holding grudges. Sharon said, "We should give you what everyone expects so we can pay for the restaurant." But Gavin replied, "And what does that have to do with me?" Jolene tried a softer approach, saying she was willing to do anything he wanted to recover the money. Sharon added, "Give us 20,000 and you won't see us again today." Gavin agreed and lent 20,000 to each of them. They assured him they would repay him. Then the MC asked his friend why his eyes were so swollen. Parker said he had tried talking to his father about the apocalypse, and since his father refused to listen, he ended up crying. Because of that, his father hit him to make him stop. Gavin told him that, over time, he would come to accept reality. Soon, the supervisor announced that the bus was about to leave. Not long after, they were on their way. Gavin mentioned he was thirsty. A classmate offered him water. Her name was Kuyukui. She was very pretty with bright, warm-colored eyes. She kindly said she had heard about what Shen Scott did to him and hoped he was okay. She also mentioned hearing about his financial troubles and offered to help with some money she had. She was incredibly sweet. Gavin said he didn't need it. Parker then said, "Man, she's really into you." Gavin replied, "Cut it out." After a while, they arrived at their destination. They were there for an internship. There were 3 levels of placement, from the 3rd floor down to the 1st. The higher the level, the better the opportunity. That was what the supervisor explained. He began calling the students assigned to the 3rd floor. Sharon and Jolene were among them. They glanced at Kuyukui and started gossiping about her. Sharon said Kui came from the countryside and was still inexperienced. The supervisor continued, now calling students for the 2nd floor. Unfortunately, Parker, Gavin, and Kui were not selected. The supervisor said the 3 of them would be assigned to the 1st floor. Kui said she was worried she wouldn't learn anything there. Everyone looked at them and mocked them for being the lowest-ranked group. The MC questioned the supervisor's decision, who claimed it was determined by the school. But Gavin knew better. He realized the supervisor was lying and said so. The supervisor claimed it was about balance, since Gavin was poor, so he should be grouped with Parker, who was wealthy. Parker spoke up against him, but the mustached man told him to be quiet. Parker then pulled out his phone, revealing he had recorded everything, and that's when another person stepped in, Wanda. He arrived trying to take control of the situation. Even Sharon and Jolene thought his reaction was excessive. Gavin said, "Who do you think you are? Get lost." Wanda tried to act tough, mocking how Gavin had been rejected by Shen Scott, but he ended up getting hit. He made the mistake of confronting the protagonist. Gavin struck him again, and when Wanda tried to call the supervisor, he got hit once more and fell. The supervisor showed up and told Gavin to stop, but the MC didn't hold back and hit him too. Parker cheered while the rest of the class watched in shock. The mustached man said Gavin was finished and that he would have him expelled. Gavin told him to get lost and knocked him out with a punch. One hit was all it took. He then called Parker and Kukui to leave with him. However, Sharon acted cunningly and asked the supervisor to let them take care of Kukui. They approached the naive girl with hidden intentions. Being innocent followed them. Meanwhile, Gavin continued with his plan. They went to the largest cargo port in the city. All goods arrived there by ship. There was only one reason for the MC to be there: supplies. Parker was speechless. The place had the best resources in the city, but gaining access was another matter. Gavin spotted a sign that read hiring, and seeing women going inside, he decided to follow that path. They approached an employee and asked if they were hiring. The man politely confirmed that they were. However, there was a catch. They were only hiring women. Gavin then suggested going back to bring Kuki to help them get in. Back at the internship, Jolene was giving Sharon more information about Kuki. They were convinced she was still inexperienced. Sharon said, "Come on, let's confirm it ourselves." They approached Kuki and started a conversation. She quickly fell for their words. Sharon asked, "Tell me something, have you ever had a boyfriend?" Kuki replied that she had never had anything like that. Jolene then said that was perfect, because they knew the ideal man for her. Kuki said that wasn't her priority, but Sharon insisted that meeting a wealthy man was important. They then led the naive girl away, convincing her as they went. The 2 of them took Kuki to a secret meeting, claiming that Mr. Jang was an excellent match. Then they brought her to Mr. Jang, and what a match he was, an older man who looked like a retired baker. The man said he would pay them 30,000, 1 share for each, for completing the task. The 2 schemers left, abandoning poor Kuki with him, even though she was terrified. He approached her with clear intent, and Kuki said she would call the police if he didn't stop. But the man replied that all the security guards worked for him. When she tried to use her phone, he snatched it from her hand. However, the phone had already placed a call while on the ground. And who was on the line? Him. The call reached Gavin's phone. He answered calmly, but the man crushed Kuikui's phone. As he moved closer, Kuikui grabbed a vase and said she would rather die than submit to him. With the signal cut off, Gavin and Parker grew suspicious, so they rushed over. They needed to hurry because she was already fighting to protect herself. The director struck her with force. Outside, the two arrived, but a guard blocked their way. Parker tried to talk his way through, but Gavin shoved the guard aside. It was a matter of life and dignity. When they tried to move forward, the guard blocked them again. Gavin claimed he was Mr. Jang's father and headed to the elevator. The guard realized the trick and called for backup. Meanwhile, upstairs, the two girls walked by, bragging. Then they suddenly froze when they saw him. Gavin Clark asked where Kokwi was. They tried to play dumb, but he said, "I'll ask one more time, where is Kokwi?" Sharon responded carelessly, and he slapped her, knocking her out. Jolene tried to speak and was struck as well. No one was spared. Soon they led Gavin to the director's office. Gavin forced his way inside, breaking through the door. Fortunately, the worst had not happened yet, as Kokwi was still calling for help. Gavin told the man to let her go. The director arrogantly pointed at him, trying to assert himself. That confidence vanished when Gavin broke his finger. The man called for security, but he took a powerful hit to the stomach that left him collapsed. Gavin went to Kokwi and checked if she was all right. When security arrived, they saw the director still alive. He ordered them to kill Gavin and Parker, along with the two girls. But before anything could happen, the guards were taken down one by one. Only the director remained. Gavin said, "I'll make sure you never harm anyone again." Then he crushed the man's lower body with a stomp. As the man writhed in pain, Gavin walked toward the two girls. They were completely shaken. And as expected, they were struck again. Thinking about it, the MC would be very skilled at this kind of thing. He gathered his companions and left as quickly as possible, while the others remained behind in regret. Jolene went to check on the director, but she was struck again. It seemed no one escaped punishment. The director then made a call, summoning someone named Buen. And who was Buen? That remained unclear. Meanwhile, Gavin and his group moved on, and Kokwi thanked him for helping her. Gavin responded modestly and asked about her plans. Kokwi said she intended to find a job after finishing her internship, but now everything seemed ruined. Gavin said he would find her a job. She was overjoyed, especially since he already had a plan. They went to a recruitment booth. She felt unqualified because they were hiring a warehouse manager. Gavin told her that with dedication she could do well. The recruiter urged them to hurry, and Gavin encouraged her to step forward and register. They said goodbye, with Parker noting that only someone as naive as her could get such a position. Gavin said that was exactly why she was chosen. After that, they left, but they were soon stopped by Mr. Jacob's men. The deadline had passed, and it was time to collect. They intended to kill them and take their organs. Gavin simply said the real show was just beginning and went with them. At the warehouse where everything would unfold, they entered. The guards escorted them, but Gavin quickly disarmed one and shot him. That alerted the others, but Gavin handled them as well. He grabbed another weapon and handed it to Parker. It was a good chance to practice before the apocalypse. Parker had no idea how to use it, but Gavin said it was like a game, aim and shoot, and he needed to learn fast. They moved toward the container yard. There, Parker recognized Zum Biotech, one of the richest biotech companies in the world. Gavin explained that in his past life, the company tried to improve human survival through biology, but the conversation didn't last long. Gavin shot one of them without hesitation. After checking their IDs, he saw they were biotech agents. Further ahead, a blonde woman met with Mr. Jacob. He said more organs would arrive soon. He just forgot to mention that the donors were still alive and coming after him. The woman said, "If they are the remaining ones, why are they armed?" Then she fired, shooting the magnate in the leg and taking down his guards. Soon, others joined the fight, and a shootout began. The MC eliminated more enemies, but even as more appeared, they all fell just as quickly. In the end, only the bosses remained. Gavin stepped forward and asked, "What's your angle, old man?" Jacob said he wouldn't cooperate, so he took another shot to the arm. The old man claimed Gavin had no idea who he was dealing with, but everyone knew the protagonist only spoke once. He told Parker to finish the job, but when Parker hesitated, Jacob pulled a weapon, and by instinct Parker fired. One shot to the forehead, and the man dropped lifeless. Gavin then greeted the blonde woman. She was shocked that he knew her name. He said, "You don't need to know who I am, but if you want a name, call me Daddy." When she reacted badly, he shot her in the leg. Just like that. He showed no mercy. She said he would regret it, and he shot her leg again. It seemed like the end for her. She begged him to stop and revealed what they had been working on. They had been conducting human experiments for a long time, but she explained it involved human evolution and the creation of biological weapons. But Gavin didn't need to hear more. He already knew that in the future, this would lead to a powerful enemy known as Mentes, a warlord. It was only a matter of time. Parker pointed out that it was a top-secret project. How did Gavin know? That remained unanswered. What mattered was that the briefcase was filled with human organs. She also offered him wealth and power if they joined forces. She didn't realize he already had plenty of power. When he pointed the gun at her, she nearly broke down, saying she could still be useful. Gavin asked, "How?" She replied, "I'm very good with my mouth." So Gavin tested that claim by putting a bullet in her mouth. He said, "You said you were good with your mouth, yet you couldn't handle that." Apparently not. Among the items he found was an access card to one of Biotech's facilities. The news eventually reached the corrupt director. He had apparently lost part of his shares. Then someone he had been expecting appeared, Hunter Walsh. This was the same man who had been beaten by the MC earlier. and had returned for revenge. Meanwhile, Gavin's villa had been fully renovated and reinforced. It was so secure that not even a tank could break through. Zhang had completed the work within a week, just as promised. Then someone unexpected showed up. She claimed to be a member of the neighborhood committee. She told him to scan a code and join the neighborhood chat group, and he did. She noticed he had a pile of empty cardboard boxes and asked if she could take them. Gavin didn't want her inside, but she kept insisting. He refused, which annoyed her. She continued pushing, and he was losing patience. "Leave," he said. She got upset at his tone, and he replied, "Go away, or you'll regret it." She left complaining, probably for the best. Elsewhere in the neighborhood, Zhang was planning revenge. He paid his men 500,000 to split among themselves. The one-eyed man Jesse said, "Boss, you're too generous. Just tell us the job." Zhang said it was a special mission. They had to find Gavin and eliminate him without leaving any trace. The one-eyed man said things would get intense that night, but everyone already knew how that would end. When night fell, the men set up an ambush. The one-eyed man told them to stay alert inside. Meanwhile, Gavin was enjoying a moment of peace. Then he sensed trouble approaching. He could hear them planning outside the door. Hunter Walsh was there too. Two groups had come to take him down. Hunter said, "Remember, beat him until nothing is left." That's when Gavin turned off the lights. Both sides prepared. On one side were Zek's men, and on the other, the director's men. What happened next was that the two groups ran into each other. The one-eyed man aimed in the dark, and Hunter warned him not to act. They began arguing. The argument escalated, and soon they were ready to kill each other. Both sides gave the order to attack. Chaos broke out, and gunfire erupted non-stop. Shots rang out everywhere. It felt like a scene from an action movie. The situation turned into complete chaos, and the only one enjoying it was the MC. "Let them play their game," he said. This continued until the lights came back on, revealing the aftermath. Hunter demanded to know what had happened. That's when he realized the situation they had created. But in the end, nothing more came of it. 3 days later, Parker said Shang Tong had tried everything to get him expelled, and was even celebrating. Parker showed messages where they were discussing it. Then Gavin sent a message exposing Shang Tong, claiming he was involved with the director's wife. Shang Tong panicked and responded angrily. Parker said it worked. Shang Tong rushed to the school forums, posting messages while the situation spiraled. Gavin said he had more important matters to handle, like dealing with Parker's father, who still didn't believe him. He said he would take care of that as well. Then they headed to a quiet part of the city at night. There stood one of the most reputable houses in the area. Yet inside, a child was locked in a cage, while the man complained that his liquor had run out. The little girl stared at him and was struck with a bottle. The man, if he could even be called a father, claimed she was worthless and only brought into the marriage by her mother. When he grabbed her hair, she bit him. That alone made him swear he would kill her. But Gavin arrived just in time. The man was named Feng. In the apocalypse, he would gain a powerful hyperspace ability and earn favor with the authorities. Even so, he abandoned an entire city to starve after fleeing with supplies. His end was far from peaceful. The ice demon eventually killed him. There was only one issue. This girl had never appeared in Gavin's previous life. At the very least, he had no memory of her. Feng continued abusing the child, and Parker threatened him. Drunk Feng attacked them as well, but instead of the protagonist, Parker shot him in the leg. Quite a surprise, Gavin remarked that Parker's aim was improving. Parker stepped forward and declared he would not let someone like Feng leave with the girl. However, the child moved first and struck Feng. The blow was not enough, so she hit him again and again without stopping. Nothing remained of him. Gavin stated he deserved that fate. He died exactly as he lived. The protagonist told Parker to clean the girl while he handled something more important. Another shower of falling stars began. He allowed himself to be struck by one again. This time, he gained a new ability. He could now store countless items within a space larger than several football fields combined. However, there was a problem. A police car was passing nearby. They had detained a man who claimed he had come to that house to buy a girl. The officers prepared to intervene. Inside, the child had already been cleaned and treated. Then came the warning that the police were outside. It was the perfect moment for Gavin to test his new power. He made Feng's body disappear instantly. The police then entered. "Who is Feng?" the sergeant asked. They raised their hands while the detained man pointed at them, saying none of them was the person. The officer asked again what they were doing there, and Gavin replied that the girl was his distant cousin and he had come to check on her. Parker added that he was just a classmate. The sergeant then asked the frightened girl for her name. "My name is Zixi," she answered. He asked if she knew Gavin, and she confirmed she did. She said he was her cousin, introduced by her mother. With that, the officers left them alone. Parker was ready to leave, but they were forgetting the girl they had just saved. Gavin asked if she wanted to come with them. She hesitated briefly, but he decided she would go regardless. It was safer that way. "Do you know how to make instant noodles?" he asked. She replied that she did. After all, who doesn't? That settled it, and the three of them disappeared into the night. Morning came, and only 3 days remained before the apocalypse. Parker admitted he was still shaken by everything, but Gavin reassured him. What mattered now was convincing his father. Mr. Gray was not pleased. Parker tried to explain again. The old man simply asked to drink his tea in peace. When he reached for his cup, it vanished from the table. Gavin had used his ability, though to the old man it seemed like a trick. Then the sofa disappeared as well. He fell to the floor and Gavin said, "So sir, do you believe me now?" Mr. Gray still refused to accept it, so the table disappeared next. Even then, he remained skeptical. He said, "If you can make everything in this house disappear, then I'll believe you." Gavin replied, "Say no more." Everything vanished instantly. Unfortunately, Parker ended up taking the impact. "Hey dad, I didn't do anything," he protested. Gray replied that he just wanted to confirm he was not dreaming, and clearly he was not. The next day, only 2 days remained before the apocalypse, and it began with money arriving in Gavin's account. He had obtained $760 million without taxes. Gavin continued purchasing supplies and also planned to acquire weapons. At his villa, now more like a fortress, the renovation was complete. The manager Zong presented the finished work. Everything was done, and Gavin praised him before completing the payment. He also gave him some advice, telling him to stay home and stockpile supplies. Zong found it strange and asked if a storm was coming. Gavin answered that it was, a very large one. The manager took the warning seriously and decided to rest. Outside, Parker arrived with a cart filled to the brim with supplies. It was time to store everything. From a distance, Lil watched, wondering how he could afford so much. Her grandson noticed a box of candy, and she decided to grab one for him. Meanwhile, Parker and Gavin discussed their spending. They had not even reached 1 million yet. Then a worker approached, saying a shipment of crossbows had not been unloaded because an elderly woman was preventing them from working. There she was, opening the crates without permission. That was clearly unacceptable. The owner showed up asking what she thought she was doing, and she played innocent, saying she was only taking a lollipop for her grandson. Gavin immediately refused. She told him not to be so stingy, and he snapped back, telling her to leave, but she kept insulting him. Meanwhile, her grandson managed to open one of the crates and grab what he wanted. Gavin ordered him to get down. The boy acted defiant, so Gavin rolled up his sleeves and threatened to teach him a lesson. The old woman told him to stay away. Then things took a turn. The boy fell into the crate and was pierced by multiple arrows. Gavin had tried to warn them, but it was too late, and he remarked, "Serves him right." The woman stormed off, threatening retaliation. Outside, Shen Scott appeared with her blue-haired friend Z King. She wondered briefly what the protagonist was doing, but did not pay much attention. She simply said Z King would deal with him sooner or later. They then went to the warehouse where Kui Kui worked, and purchased 5 storage barns for grain. Gavin asked how her job was going. She replied that she had been promoted but wondered how much longer she needed to stay. He told her she could leave the next day if she wanted. He added that he needed one last favor. He asked her to help him obtain the warehouse yard keys that night. Kui Kui asked what he planned to do there. Gavin answered that she would understand when the time came. He instructed her to wait for him alone and not bring anyone. They then went to inspect the storage space. Mr. Liang said everything was ready. After the old man left, Gavin began acting. He activated his spatial ability, and all the crates vanished. Shortly after, Mr. Liang returned to mention something he had forgotten and found the area completely empty. "What happened here?" he exclaimed in shock. That night, Gavin arrived at the warehouse entrance. Kui Kui was already waiting. Approached her, looked into her eyes and said, "Listen, it's just you and me, so stay quiet, okay?" She nodded, and he added, "All right, I'm starting." She closed her eyes, expecting something else. Gavin then said, "Hey, what are you doing just standing there? Follow me." She obeyed. They reached the section with the tallest shelves. He intended to use his power to absorb more crates, and that is exactly what he did. Kui Kui was amazed by what she saw. Gavin said he would explain everything later. For now, they needed to gather more supplies. They moved to the surveillance room and cleared that out as well. There was no need for cameras in the apocalypse. When they returned to the fortress, Jixi brought them tea. During that time, Gavin had explained enough of the situation to Kui Kui. She simply said, "I understand, I believe you." Parker was surprised by how much she trusted him. What mattered was that Gavin warned them the apocalypse would begin the next day, and that they must not leave under any circumstances. Kui Kui said she wanted to go out briefly to enjoy the remaining time. Gavin told her to be quick. Elsewhere, the one-eyed man made excuses. He claimed they had run into Hunter Walsh's group and ended up in friendly fire. Zeke was tired of failures, so this time he decided to act personally. It did not seem likely to go well for him. Meanwhile, Kui Kui was taking care of a litter of kittens. It was her quiet farewell, but someone with bad intentions was watching her closely. Zek ordered the one-eyed man to capture her. She would be the perfect bait, and soon they received confirmation that she had been taken. Zek demanded that Gavin come alone. "He's asking to die and I'm ready to kill him," Gavin said confidently. Whether he truly went alone remained unclear. What was certain was that the apocalypse was near, and he ordered them to release the girl. They let her go. She ran toward Gavin, but it was only a setup for Zek to shoot. With sharp reflexes, Gavin grabbed her and dodged the bullet. How did he avoid that? Zek wondered. Kui Kui was unharmed but terrified. Gavin reassured her. He told her there was nothing to fear. Zek, however, said he had planned to let them live a little longer but would now end things sooner. He ordered his men to attack. The first one had his head slammed into a wall. The others hesitated but eventually followed orders. One tried to stab Gavin, but his knife was taken from him. Gavin moved at incredible speed and overwhelmed them. Kui Kui struggled to breathe as she realized who he truly was. The one-eyed man mentioned they had firearms. He attempted to shoot Gavin. Attempted because Gavin revealed he had a gun as well. That marked the end of their group. It was the first time Kwee saw Gavin kill. The one-eyed man tried to escape but was shot in the legs. Like many in that situation, he invoked his name and the dragon group for protection. He was shot again in the leg, and Gavin stated he knew exactly who he was. "I admit defeat. I admit it. Just name your price." Zek said this in desperation. Gavin responded calmly, "I want 1 trillion. The protagonist stated it plainly. Zek told him to stop joking. No one in their right mind could pay such an absurd amount, but that was the cost of his actions. Since he could not afford it, he resorted to fighting. He was completely beaten down. Gavin only stopped his assault when the police arrived behind them. "It's over. It's over." Everyone on the ground. The officers announced their intervention. With his face bruised, Zek claimed he had called them before things escalated. "You're finished," he said before being shot in a sensitive area. "That clearly hurt," he screamed. And Gavin said, "My name is Ari, and I don't care." The police were already there, and it was too late. They placed everyone under arrest, and Gavin counted down. 3, 2, 1, now. Snow began to fall. The officers were stunned. What is happening? It's summer. Why is it snowing? They wondered. It was not light snow but a full blizzard. Everyone began freezing. The apocalypse had begun. The commander ordered the officers to assist them. Gavin grabbed Kwee's arm and said they had to leave because the temperature would keep dropping. An officer told him to stop, but Gavin warned that holding metal in such cold was dangerous. Zeke pleaded for help, saying he would freeze to death. Gavin replied, "I know, enjoy the apocalypse," and left with Kwee. The entire city, and soon the world, was swallowed by a violent snowstorm. People were freezing, and the climate was in chaos. Gavin explained to Kwee that conditions would only worsen. When she asked how long it would last, he said he did not know. In his previous life he had died frozen. He remembered the frozen nightmare lasting a full year with no sign of ending. It was a terrifying situation. People quickly lost their sense of morality and order. They began looting stores without hesitation. Gavin said this was only the beginning. Humanity would continue to deteriorate. As proof, 2 men stopped them to steal their clothes. Gavin warned them to leave. Instead, they attacked without thinking. One was struck and dropped instantly. Gavin aimed his pistol at the other, and showing restraint gave him another chance. Fortunately, the man recognized him. Time passed, and the snow grew heavier outside, while inside remained warm. Gavin instructed them never to open the door for anyone. The news repeated the same message. The world was frozen. Gavin checked the group chat and saw people were still alive. There were many complaints about supply shortages. He then sent a message. "My advice is simple. If you stock supplies, stock as much as possible." 3 days later, the snow had not stopped. Outside, temperatures had dropped to -60 degrees. Kuki worried about those who had no time to prepare. At least they knew about it, right? In the group chat, people were panicking. Someone suggested gathering to check everyone's supplies. Then someone knocked on their door. It was Lil and others, all asking to be let in. Gavin said it was already warm enough inside. Lil shouted for him to open the door, but he refused. She scolded him. "How dare you oppose the neighborhood organization?" Gavin replied, "How dare I oppose it? Watch me." Her protest changed nothing. She told the group to check other houses instead. Only 3 days into the apocalypse, and people were already showing their worst sides. Elsewhere, Lil and Shen Scott were discussing their situation. They only had enough food for 3 more days. Lil suggested contacting someone to buy supplies before prices skyrocketed. Shen used the group chat to reach out to a supplier. She ordered instant noodles and porridge at a high price. Gavin quietly observed the conversation. He noticed how Shen was being strategic by buying while things were still somewhat affordable. Kuki brought out a well-prepared meal. In a few more days, everything would collapse. 3 days later, the temperature dropped further to -67 degrees. Sharon, Jolin, and others were freezing. She asked Hunter Walsh what he planned to do. He suggested looting. One of their companions then noticed Gavin Clark on social media. Sharon had no idea he lived in that neighborhood. Hunter Walsh suggested paying him a visit. Meanwhile, at Gavin Clark's house, things were going well. They even had a gym, and Sixie was training with them. She was already picking up some impressive martial arts skills. Parker realized he needed to train too. The MC encouraged him, but the big guy could not even handle a single squat. He looked like someone completely out of shape at the gym. Then Gavin received a message. "Hunter Walsh says you should know what's good for you. Bring him food or he'll come over and deal with you." The MC replied, "Get lost." At his place, Hunter Walsh read the response. He spat out his tea and swore he would settle things once and for all. At Shen Scott's house, her mother reminded her that Gavin had stocked a huge amount of supplies. They discussed how he could have known the apocalypse was coming. Then Shen Scott came up with a plan. "Don't worry, Mom. I know how to make him give us supplies. Just wait and see." One thing was undeniable. She was attractive, at least on the outside. Outside, a group had already surrounded Gavin Clark's fortified home. Parker pointed it out, but the MC told them not to worry. It was just Hunter Walsh and his crew. Hunter raised his machete and ordered the MC to open the door. Gavin told him to leave, but Hunter kept making threats. The MC had no intention of listening any longer. He pressed a button, and a jet of water sprayed at them. The freezing water quickly turned icy in the cold. They retreated to avoid freezing to death. Gavin then said it was time for them to go outside. Enough time had passed since the apocalypse began, but more meteors would fall. He needed to be ready. He received a message on WhatsApp. and surprisingly, it was from Shen Scott. She said she wanted to talk. He ignored her out of principle. At her house, Shen reassured her mother that he would respond soon, but half an hour passed. She kept sending messages non-stop, like someone desperately texting an ex. Even so, Gavin Clark gave no response and ignored her completely. After some time, everyone was freezing. Even fire was no longer effective. Shen complained that Gavin still had not replied, then decided to send a voice message, convinced he would not resist her voice. Gavin listened and noticed how persistent she was, so he decided to toy with her. He replied, "Hey sweetheart, miss me already?" When she saw his message, she threw her phone to the ground. In the neighborhood group chat, things were not going well either. Someone suggested gathering all remaining food and distributing it among the houses. Gavin knew that plan would likely fail, but said nothing. It was already dark outside. He told Kukiwa and Sixie to get dressed because they were heading out. He needed to retrieve the meteor. They stepped out into the blizzard. Gavin warned them that 2 meteors would fall and told them to stay alert. Then up ahead there was Lil. She was shouting through a megaphone, urging anyone with food to contribute to the community. Parker muttered that she was shameless. Someone recognized Gavin Clark and informed her. She said she had finally found him. She ordered them to stop and began questioning him, implying he had stockpiled supplies at home. He admitted that he had. She then declared that he would donate those supplies to the neighborhood committee for redistribution. She insisted he should do it for the community. Gavin simply replied that the community could take care of itself. That response did not sit well with her. He made it clear she had no authority to tell him what to do. He left her standing there in frustration. However, she was not alone, and 2 men blocked his path. When she kept talking, she was struck again. Parker stepped in and taught her a lesson, leaving a mark on her face. At that moment, meteors began falling. Jixi pointed them out, and Gavin told everyone to hurry. He pushed past the 2 men blocking the way. Parker saw this as his chance to get hit by a meteor and gain powers. But unexpectedly, one meteor changed course and headed straight for Jixi. It struck her directly. Kuki rushed to help her. "Are you okay?" she asked, noticing Jixi's body was already radiating energy. She said, "The meteor was absorbed into my body." 2 more meteors were escaping. They chased after them as fast as possible but could not keep up, and the meteors hit the ground. When they reached the crater, they saw something unusual inside. This was puzzling, since meteors were supposed to merge with people and grant abilities. Gavin picked up a gem containing a liquid, the red spirit. Anyone who consumed it would gain strong resistance to the cold. Gavin said they would study it further once they got home. But then Lil appeared again, demanding that he give them money. Others asked what she would do if he refused. She simply said they should move on to another house and deal with him later. When they returned to the fortress, the power was nearly gone, but Gavin Clark restarted the solar panels. Kukui wondered how many more people outside would freeze or starve. Parker told her not to worry about that. They could not save everyone, and he asked how Jixi was feeling. She said she felt brighter somehow. She added that was the only difference. Then Gavin Clark told her to use the techniques he had taught her. Watching her movements, he realized the abilities she gained from the meteor were not related to physical strength. She also said she could not cast or create anything unusual, and he replied they would figure it out over time. He then pointed out the sample they had taken from the meteor. He said everyone would try a bit of the fluid. After that, they would no longer need to worry about the cold outside. Parker went first. After drinking it, he said he felt something flowing through his body. Gavin explained that after consuming it, they would not freeze outside, even without heavy clothing. At Shen Scott's house, the power had already gone out. Without solar energy, they were freezing. Shen said that when Zek returned, he would finally deal with Gavin Clark. Then they noticed that his house still had electricity, so she tried once more, sending him a voice message. At home, Gavin Clark only saw her loud complaints in his messages. His table was full of good food. It looked incredible. Nothing but quality dishes. He sent her a photo of the table and the message reached her. They were left craving the food. The table had everything, from lobster to premium steak. Desperate and starving, Shen Scott sent another message, trying to sound as gentle as possible. Gavin responded. He sent an audio saying, "All right, I'm about to eat now. Bye." She threw her phone to the ground. Her anger kept growing. On his couch, Gavin Clark enjoyed watching the world suffer while he had everything he needed. In the group chat, people were starving, but he did not care. And at Hunter Walsh's house, they only had a small flame to keep from freezing. Jaren and Jolin asked if he had any plan, and since confronting the MC was not an option, he said their best chance was to rob Lil. At her house, the old woman was feeding her grandchildren. The boy told her she should eat more, and she replied, "Grandma doesn't need to eat, you do." Then someone knocked on the door. It was Hunter Walsh and his group. Lil panicked because she knew how ruthless he was. She told her grandson to hide somewhere, and there was no other choice. Hunter Walsh kicked the door open. Behind them was all their remaining food. Hunter Walsh simply ordered, "Take everything." She tried to protect the food, saying it belonged to the committee to distribute to the neighborhood, but they showed no mercy and beat her before taking it. She resisted but was overpowered. The boy bit one of them, but he was struck as well. Hunter Walsh also told them to take the furniture, anything that could be used as fuel, and they carried everything away. At Shen Scott's house, she tried once again to contact the MC, this time being more affectionate. "Can I come see you?" she asked. The MC said yes. He wanted to see her beg. Shen, only wanting hot food, went with her mother to the fortress. Inside, Gavin was playing video games. Shen Scott said, "It's me, Shen Scott." He asked what she was doing there. She said, "Please open the door. We're freezing out here." Gavin Clark pretended not to understand. She insisted he was the one who had told her to come. The MC replied that she had misunderstood his message and said he would not open the door. Shen Scott kicked the door in frustration. The two of them remained outside with no options. Shen then said she would call Lil. At her place, the boy was complaining about the cold and hunger since everything had been taken. Soon she received the call. Shen Scott told her to teach Gavin Clark a lesson, since she led the committee. Lil said she had already been trying. In the group chat, the discussion was intense, with people still having no food or warmth. Then a message from Lil appeared, revealing that he had a stockpile of supplies. She added that he could not let people starve. But Gavin thought carefully. In his past life, his kindness had been exploited, and everything he had was taken. In desperation, Lil called on the entire neighborhood to gather at his house and surround it. At the fortress, Parker said that in his father's neighborhood, people were going crazy, looting and breaking everything. Gavin Clark said things would only get worse, and people would become more ruthless. So Parker said he was worried about his parents, since someone might break into their home. He said he would go immediately, and Gavin Clark said he would go with him, but angry neighbors began pounding on the door. They checked the cameras and saw a large crowd. Slow down. They also noticed the lights were on inside the fortress. Fulile said she just wanted some food for her grandson. Gavin Clark replied that they could keep dreaming and starve. Fulile told him to distribute his supplies. In the name of the community and the committee she led, she asked if he would open the door, but the MC said, "I'm not opening anything. If you're capable, open it yourselves." Then Lil ordered someone to break the door down. That made the crowd more hopeful. Old Loli tried using his lockpick, but admitted he had never seen a lock like that before. The fortress door was as complex as a bank vault. There was no way they could break in. Gavin Clark grew tired of it and told the big guy to activate the traps. The locksmith was hit by a powerful electric shock and collapsed, dropping his porridge package. So they moved on to plan B. They brought a log to smash the door and struck it hard. Gavin Clark watched calmly and remarked that the apocalypse was a test of character, revealing people's good and bad sides. The door was far too heavy for them. They soon became exhausted, and the MC said, "Now that they're worn out, let's give them something unexpected." The big guy pressed the button, and they were drenched in a foul-smelling liquid. It was a mixture of urine and feces. It was disgusting and unnecessary. While Gavin laughed at them, they were forced to leave as another blizzard approached. The cold kept intensifying. At Sharon and Jolene's house, they were warm thanks to everything they had stolen from the old woman. They heard about what happened to Lil and the neighbors being covered in filth, but Hunter Walsh reminded them that Gavin still had a large stockpile of supplies. The plan was still active. Hunter Walsh said he had unfinished business with Gavin and was ready to end it. He just needed to proceed carefully. At Sharon Scott's house, she decided to try contacting Zek. When he answered, she asked when he would return to take her away and protect her, but he responded harshly, saying he could not even take care of himself, let alone others. This shocked her mother, as they already felt abandoned. Sharon Scott saw only one option, to go out and look for food, but leaving would mean freezing to death. With no alternative, the older woman suggested, "Why not beg Gavin Clark? He's the only one who can save us." When she called him, Shen Scott said, "Please forgive me. What do I have to do for you to forgive me?" Gavin Clark replied, "Call me Daddy." Shen Scott said he was going too far, but her mother urged her to do it. She had nothing to lose except her life if she stayed there starving in the cold. Shen, filled with anger, agreed but thought she would retaliate later. Then over the call, the MC heard, "Daddy." He replied, "I don't have a rebellious daughter like you." He tricked her completely, and Shen lost her temper, insulting him repeatedly. Back at Shireen and Jolene's place, the situation felt like a dramatic show. Hunter Walsh and his men prepared to attack the MC again, and they went ahead with it. At Gavin Clark's fortress, he said he would be ruthless this time and truly injure them. Only then would they abandon this madness. Outside, Hunter Walsh shouted for him, "Open this door. This is your only chance." Since threats meant nothing to him, they began stacking wood against the door. They poured gasoline, which alarmed Parker. Gavin explained the house was built with fire-resistant materials. They could try for days and still not burn it down. Hunter Walsh threw a lighter and flames surged violently. After some time, his men reported no movement inside. One of them said the fire seemed useless. Hunter cursed and ordered them to bring a jackhammer. One of the men arrived with the tool. The drill struck the surface, sending sparks everywhere. Inside, Six-Eye grew worried, but Gavin reassured her that the place was impenetrable. He called Parker, saying it was time to hunt. They armed themselves with strong longbows. Gavin knew that as the apocalypse progressed, supernatural creatures immune to firearms would appear. Training with bows was a smart preparation. Outside, the jackhammer kept working with no progress. When it finally made a small hole, they saw a layer of hardened titanium steel behind it. Before Hunter Walsh could react in anger, something more dangerous struck. Arrows flew in and pierced him mercilessly. Hunter ordered everyone to run as fast as possible while arrows kept coming. They fled, furious and badly wounded. The weaker ones were left behind to die. They pleaded, "Hunter Walsh, don't leave us." He told them to stay in the snow or leave if they were smart enough. Parker asked why he let them live. Gavin Clark said they would freeze to death anyway. It was not his concern. Those who survived were grateful they had been spared. One of them picked up a phone to call Hunter Walsh. He asked him to come back and rescue them. When they said they were at Gavin Clark's door, they only heard the call disconnect. They grew angry at being abandoned despite their loyalty. Their only chance now was to beg Gavin Clark for mercy. So they began pleading. At Sharon and Jolin's house, Hunter Walsh returned defeated. Jolin said, "How can Gavin Clark be this strong?" Hunter told them to stop talking nonsense and take care of him. In the kitchen, they started forming a plan. It was clear they could not survive there without food in such freezing conditions. Their only option was Gavin Clark's house. Jolin warned it could go badly since their relationship was strained, but Sharon said she would try for the sake of their friendship as classmates. At Gavin Clark's fortress, they stood before the snowmobiles. They wasted no time and went to check on Parker's parents. From a window, Lil and Shen Scott watched them leave. Shen Scott said she would take everything he had. They then moved through the streets. There were barely any people outside. They stopped at a supermarket to check the situation. Inside, everything had been looted, but not everyone had left. A straggler tried to strike Gavin Clark from behind, but he ended up getting hit instead. Parker said he would finish him off, but the man begged for forgiveness. "I have a family to feed. I had no choice," he said. He told his wife and children to come out. His wife was pregnant and the kids looked neglected. Gavin Clark pointed out that he could have asked them for food instead of attacking. The wife pleaded for mercy, and Gavin called Parker over. There was a strange odor in the air. Gavin Clark identified it as the smell of blood. Moments later, they found 2 skeletons with traces still on them. They realized there had been cannibalism, and that family had eaten those bodies. Outraged, Parker said he would end them. But Gavin Clark stepped in. "If you kill the husband, how will the woman and children survive?" This only made Parker angrier, as he questioned how many people might have died because of them. Gavin Clark replied that some people always cross the line. In desperate situations, humans can do extreme things to survive. They then got back on the snowmobiles and left. When they reached Parker's parents' house, they found the door wide open. Inside, the worst had already happened, and intruders had broken in. He asked what should be done with Parker's parents. Their leader ordered that they be killed. Suddenly, Parker appeared. His mother shouted, but she was shot. His father lunged at the attacker and told Parker to run, but he was also shot. As the man was about to shoot Parker, he could not even pull the trigger, because Gavin appeared and tore his arm off. The protagonist did not even let him cry out, striking him down immediately. Their leader became furious and ordered an attack. The thug did not even get a chance to aim before the protagonist cut him down. The remaining ones tried to flee, but they could not escape. Gavin Clark stopped them and struck them down. Only the leader remained in the back, while Parker stood beside his wounded parents. His mother said she loved him, and his father told him to take care of himself. Soon after, they passed away. Enraged, Parker told Gavin Clark to leave the man to him so he could take revenge. The protagonist did not interfere as Parker approached and stabbed the man repeatedly without mercy. The leader begged for his life, claiming he had only followed orders. "Go to hell," Parker said. Parker said he would turn him into Swiss cheese, but Gavin stopped him. Information was more valuable now, and he asked, "Who sent you?" The thug answered that it was Chief Lee from Meng Village. Gavin knew that man well. He had once been helped by Parker's father, yet repaid him with betrayal. The thug said Meng Village was the most powerful group around, but since he knew more, he begged to be spared and promised silence. "Sparing you only happens in your dreams," Gavin replied. "If you kill me, all of Meng Village will come after you," the man warned, but Gavin ignored it. He had to pay for what he had done. Then the man was stripped and left exposed to the freezing cold. Gavin Clark said, "Someone like you deserves to freeze to death," and kicked him outside. He remained there until he turned into ice. Parker was not satisfied and said he wanted revenge. Gavin Clark said he would go with him. Shortly after, they arrived at the entrance of Meng Village. The bodies hanging at the gate made it clear what kind of place it was. They barely had time to think before snowmobiles approached them. "Who are you?" one of them asked. Gavin Clark said they had come as guests. "Oh really? Who invited you?" the thug asked. Gavin Clark answered that it was Lee Satan, the village leader. The guard did not believe him, saying Lee had been invited by the owner of Biotech, Mr. Zui. The mistake was pointing a gun at Gavin Clark. In response, they were shot in the head. The gunfire alerted the sentries above the entrance. They quickly got on their vehicles and left. A plan would be wiser. When they returned, many people were gathered in front of the fortress. "Great, Gavin Clark is back," they said. He was puzzled by the crowd, but they asked if he had brought anything back from the trip. The protagonist, impatient, told them to move aside. One neighbor asked if he had found supplies, but Gavin Clark replied, "Find supplies for you? I do not care about the world." He added that what he did was none of their concern. "Get out of my way," he said as he walked past them. Lil then begged him to share some supplies. Gavin Clark said he had found nothing, but she did not believe him and tried to search him. He struck her in response. Parker then told everyone to leave. The crowd protested again, saying they would starve. They then threatened to take the snowmobiles and search for supplies themselves. Gavin Clark refused to allow it. "But you have plenty of supplies at home, why not share?" Lil insisted. Gavin Clark ignored the question and told them to step aside. When Lil grabbed his arm again, she was struck once more. Because of this, the crowd said there were no laws anymore, and that they would respond with violence. "Apologize, Gavin Clark," she demanded. Strangely, Gavin Clark extended his hand. "Oh no, here it comes," and he struck her again. That was not enough. He continued beating Lil as she begged him to stop. He did not stop and even said, "Think it is over? You will take more." Lil's face was badly bruised. The neighbors begged him to stop and tried to reason with him. One of them grabbed his shoulder and said, "What kind of man hits a woman like that?" The protagonist replied, "Then I will hit you too if that bothers you," and proceeded to beat the man without restraint. The man begged him to stop. Gavin Clark threw him to the ground and told them all to leave. In the group chat, people begged the protagonist to share some of his supplies, but he replied, "Am I your father? I do not care if you starve." He said that in his past life, the collapse of morality led to nothing good, but this time he would teach them a lesson. He received a call from an unknown number, and the caller was a heavily built man. The man asked if he was speaking to Gavin Clark. He then said, "Do you know who I am?" and revealed himself as Satan, the leader of Mink Village. "You are scared, right?" Satan asked, but the protagonist answered bluntly, "Afraid of someone like you? I would rather flush you away." That response made Satan furious. Growing impatient, Gavin Clark told him to get to the point. Satan said he had a lot of nerve attacking his village. Gavin Clark said he was glad he called just to complain. Satan fired back angrily, "I will find you. When you are bathing, I will be there. When you are watching television, I will be there. Even in your dreams, I will be there." Gavin replied, "No, Satan, you killed my best friend's parents. I will be the one who finds you. You may be a devil, but I am the one who will deal with you." Satan asked for his address, and Gavin Clark gave it to him. They ended the call and set a date to settle things. Satan ordered his men to gather, bringing weapons and their fighters. At Gavin Clark's house, he called Parker to go out. They decided to head straight to the enemy instead of waiting. On the way, they passed a police station. Gavin Clark said they should stop there to collect weapons. They entered the building by breaking the door. Inside, the officers had frozen while on duty. This showed that government forces had no time to react. They went to the armory and forced their way in. It was filled with high-grade weapons. There were even sticks of dynamite. Gavin used his ability to store everything in his spatial storage. However, they were not alone. As they left the armory, they encountered several skeletons. A man named Hex said it seemed someone had arrived before them. His subordinate reported that the armory was empty. When Hex asked if Gavin Clark had taken everything, Gavin told him to believe whatever he wanted. Rian then said he would search him. Gavin Clark refused. Hex said he owned a gym and would check him quickly. Gavin Clark replied that he did not allow others to touch him. The thug made the mistake of poking his chest and immediately received a blow to the face. Everyone already knew what happened next. Anyone who got close to the protagonist was severely beaten. Har ordered an attack, and since Gavin was out of patience, he drew his pistol. The men were taken down instantly. Gavin Clark eliminated them faster than they could react. Another one tried to question him and was also shot in the head. Compared to him, any vigilante would seem insignificant. The remaining men tried to flee. That only made them easy targets, and Gavin shot them down. Only Har remained, crying and begging. It seemed obvious what would happen next. Gavin Clark looked at him and said, "Fool," then shot him in the head. Gavin Clark, already tired of everything, told Parker it was time to leave. At Satan's base, they were preparing to depart on snowmobiles. He ordered them to kill the protagonist on sight, and said that if they found women they liked, they could keep them. Afterward, they could eliminate them as well. "Move faster," Satan commanded. In the middle of the blizzard, Gavin Clark and Parker waited in ambush and spotted the snowmobiles leaving a nearly empty village. Gavin said it was the perfect chance to strike. At the entrance gate, they prepared several sticks of dynamite. Breaking through would be easy. From above, the guards noticed something approaching. It was a snowmobile moving at high speed, but it had no rider, only explosives strapped to it. Just like suicide bombers, this was a bomb vehicle. When it hit the gate, the explosion destroyed everything around it. Two men came as reinforcements, but Gavin Clark approached with his pistol already drawn. Two precise shots ended them instantly. They then passed through the gate and entered the village. More enemies were taken down as they advanced. One of them tried to flee and report back, but was shot in the leg. From there, it followed the usual outcome. He begged for his life. The protagonist refused, and he was finished. They were surprised when they entered the warehouse and saw the massive stockpile of supplies Satan had stored. The quantity was overwhelming. Gavin Clark transferred everything into his spatial storage. After that, they returned toward the fortress. The next step was dealing with Satan himself. Gavin Clark said he would teach him a slow lesson, gradually destroying his forces before finishing him at the end. At the meeting point Gavin had given, the snow had covered everything. What this made Satan furious, even more so when he realized he had been deceived. He made a call and received news that his village had been destroyed. He immediately headed back. When he arrived, everything was in ruins. He ordered that Gavin Clark be found as quickly as possible and swore to make him suffer a slow death. At home, Gavin Clark was exchanging messages with Sharon. He asked if they could meet, saying he had no time, but he did not expect them to show up at his door. They called out to him sweetly, and surprisingly, he opened the door. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. They said they came to see him, but he noticed their suspicious looks and said, "Stop staring at me and get lost." They barely had time to react before Jaren asked him to wait. "Come on, we're classmates and neighbors. We should help each other," she said. "Help each other? What can you do for me?" he replied. "Anything you want, dear. Any position you like," Sharon answered suggestively. "Fine, then I'll make you my little servants," he said. She replied that he was cruel and she liked that. When they asked to come in, he refused and said, "No entry. Go search the neighborhood and find me something to eat. Go on, servants." He mocked them, asking if they would not obey their master. Dine said they would die in that cold. He slapped her and said, "How dare you disobey your master," and struck Sharon as well when she protested. He said they deserved to be treated like that, and they ended up complying. As they left, they argued that he was not easy to win over. Jolene worried about how they would find food, since hunting animals was not a good option. They returned to their group and told Hunter Walsh they had spoken to him. They explained the situation and claimed that if they had stayed longer, Gavin would have harmed them. Hunter Walsh grew even angrier and said now he would finally deal with him. When Gavin stepped onto the balcony, he saw a crowd gathered outside. An old man said no one there was more selfish than him. Parker disliked the situation and wanted to go out and handle it. Gavin said that would not be necessary. He would handle it himself with his sniper rifle. The crowd kept shouting, calling him cowardly and stingy. In the back, Hunter Walsh and his men simply watched. Then it happened. The man in front was shot in the head. The crowd was shocked and saw from afar that Gavin had drawn his rifle. He warned, "You've pushed your luck. Leave now or face the same fate." A woman shouted, "Don't be afraid, everyone. He can't kill us all." Unfortunately for her, no one told her how ruthless he was. He shot another man who was not even involved. People scattered in panic, and Hunter Walsh realized this would not work. But something unusual was happening behind them. A group called the Blue Colors arrived in the neighborhood and noted it was a wealthy area. Their leader said they would search every house for food. At Aunt Leel's home, she was with her starving grandson. She picked up an ear of corn, the only thing Hunter Walsh had not taken. The boy refused it. She said that was all they had, and she would try to get better food the next day. The child threw a tantrum and told her to cut a piece of her own flesh for him to eat. Suddenly the door was forced open. The intruders burst in. They were the Blue Colors. One of them noticed the corn in her hand. She nervously demanded to know where they came from. A man with a cigarette said they were from the Jing community. He struck her. She had already suffered many beatings, yet she remained determined. She knew they were not good people and said so. He replied that laws had long since ceased to exist and only the naive still believed in them. They began forcing her through violence. One of them pressed an axe against the boy's neck. The smoker told her to hand over the food if she wanted the child to live. Soon after, she gathered all the food she had. They took everything and left. "This world is in chaos," she said. That grim reality was only worsened by her grandson begging for food. Lockle declared she would do whatever it took to keep him alive. Moments later, the Blue Colors were terrorizing another house. A couple was threatened to hand over their supplies. They said they had already been robbed several times, but excuses meant nothing. Their leader Zawdas said he never left empty-handed. As punishment, he tore off one arm from each victim. Soon, messages about this spread through the neighborhood chat. At Hunter Walsh's place, they tried to figure out where those men came from. He said they belonged to a community that had been isolated since the apocalypse. They concluded those men were extremely dangerous, since leaving such a place was almost certain death. Hunter Walsh saw an opportunity. He wanted to go talk to them, though he was not in condition to do so. His leg was still injured from his last encounter with Gavin. The rifle bullet had gone in too deep. Meanwhile, Shen was worried, since dealing with Hunter Walsh was already bad enough, and now there was another group to fear. Her mother believed Zek's name would keep them safe, but Shen Scott knew that would not work. The safest option was to hide. She said she would try contacting Gavin Clark again. Gavin stated he would drive out the intruders since they came looking for trouble. He soon received a message from Shen Scott, and she sent him an explicit photo. To keep things appropriate, only an image of her in a dress is shown as she said, "Hey handsome, do you like it?" And he replied, "I love it." She then added, "If you want more, open the door and let me in." Despite her confidence, he answered, "No thanks, people might say I'm too greedy. Some things are meant to be shared." Then he crossed the line and posted her photo in the neighborhood group chat. People went wild, especially Shen Scott, who called him insane for doing that. She swore she would never speak to him again, and he even thanked her for it. She vowed he would pay for this, while the old woman nearby was nearly losing hope. Meanwhile, the Blue Colors arrived outside. There was nowhere to run. If they did not open the door, it would be forced open and they would be harmed. So their leader ordered them to break in. Before the door could be forced, Shen opened it herself. One of the men was instantly captivated by her. He asked if she was not afraid of them. Shen Scott said circumstances left them no choice, and that it was fine. She invited them inside. Once inside, they searched for supplies but found only instant noodles. Shen Scott said they were starving. Things were not easy. Daz then said they would take her arm. Shen Scott begged, claiming her boyfriend Zek from the Dragons group would send supplies soon. He was surprised and revealed they worked for the Dragons as well. "Since you're Zek's girlfriend, let's test that," he said. She froze in fear as he told her she had two options. Either she complied with him or lost her arm. Her mother panicked, saying her daughter was a college student, but she was struck again. Shen Scott asked him to calm down. He asked if she had made her choice, and she said yes. With no alternative, she surrendered herself. Her mother could only watch her being taken away. Everyone knew what would happen next, and she was not the only one. The men approached the older woman, saying she still looked attractive, and dragged her away as she cried for help. In Shen Scott's room, she finished and dressed while hearing her mother's screams. She lied to Daz, saying she had taken care of it. He told her, "Stay with me, and I'll make sure you live well." She asked how many supplies he had gathered. He said not much, as he thought this area was rich and full of resources. That was why they came to loot. Shen Scott then said, "You targeted the wrong person." When he asked who, she revealed Gavin Clark, saying he had enough supplies for the entire community and even snowmobiles. That was enough for Daz to decide. "What are we waiting for? Let's go rob him," he said. She pointed out Gavin Clark's fortress. As the Blue Colors headed there, someone called out to them. It was Hunter Walsh, saying they were going too far. Daz asked if he wanted to join them, and they started arguing, nearly fighting. Shen Scott stepped in and stopped them. She convinced them they now shared the same goal. They should stop fighting and work together. That way they could defeat Gavin Clark. Hunter Walsh liked the idea. Soon they stood before Gavin Clark's fortress. Hunter Walsh warned them to be careful, saying Gavin was extremely dangerous. Daz mocked him, calling him useless for losing so often. "I'm not afraid of some kid, I'll show him," he said. Inside, Gavin Clark was already preparing. He picked up a firearm and said today's lesson would be target practice. Drixie held a gun and said she had always wanted to try one. While Kuke asked, "Are you going to kill someone?" He said they should not pity anyone, because people had become cruel in the apocalypse, and she said she understood. Outside, Daz announced he had come for them. Hunter Walsh was shocked by their recklessness, knowing how dangerous Gavin was. Inside, they readied their weapons. When the door was not opened, one man tried kicking it but hurt his foot. Another brought a saw, saying he would cut through it. Before they expected it, the defenders came out instead. Seeing them, Shen Scott said, "Gavin Clark, you let all these people in but not me?" Daz asked which one was Gavin, and Parker replied, "I'm not him, but I'll be the one taking you down." In the group chat, people were cheering for the attackers. They wanted Gavin Clark defeated for being selfish. When a henchman charged Parker, he pressed a gun to his forehead. No one expected them to be armed. Parker ordered him to kneel. The man said, "I doubt you have the nerve to shoot." Everyone knew how this ended, either a slap or a bullet. He chose wrong. The others were stunned when their ally dropped dead. They pulled out axes and rushed forward. From a distance, Hunter Walsh and Shen Scott watched. He said it would be ideal if they all died at once. Parker handled the fight well thanks to his weapon, but when someone tried to ambush him from behind, he was struck. Not by Parker, but by Xuxi from behind. The remaining attackers did not back down and charged, only to be shot. Even Kukui fired her weapon. Her aim, however, did not match her courage. While distracted, a henchman rushed Parker. He was shot in the face. The others shouted, "What was that?" Someone shooting from the shadows. In the distance, they saw Gavin with his sniper rifle. So what do you think will happen to them? I'll pay $1,000 to whoever guesses right. And that is where the story pauses. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, support the video, and subscribe if you have not already. If you want the continuation, comment Ice Apocalypse. The more comments there are, the faster the next part will come. 2 recommended videos are available for you to choose from. See you next time.